Member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, this is a heavy subject, I think, for most Canadians. Physician-assisted suicide is definitely something that is weighty, and that's, I guess, why, again, as a government, when we were in, we had laws before that were fine. We thought they were sufficient. It was only when the Supreme Court decided that the law wasn't sufficient that we're in this predicament today of having to find some alternative to that. I'll be speaking to some different issues. I wouldn't say they're of the highest importance to me. I'll speak about those issues a little bit later, but I wanted just to talk about a few of the issues that aren't talked about as much. And it's on page 11 of the bill, of the law, and it's called deeming. And what deeming is I'll read it out precisely from the Act itself. For the purposes of this Act, if a member of the forces receives medical assistance in dying, that member is deemed to have died as a result of the illness, disease, or disability for which they were determined to be entitled to receive that assistance. And I'll go to the next page. Again, deeming. This time, for the purposes of this Act, if a member or a veteran receives medical assistance in dying, that member or veteran is deemed to have died as a result of the illness, disease, or disability for which they were determined to be entitled to receive that assistance. And I mentioned that today, Mr. Speaker, as a former member of the Veterans Affairs Committee, in dealing with PTSD and dealing with veterans who have had trauma as a result of war and relatives that have trauma and PTSD as a result of war. To me, I'm concerned about this clause in a dramatic way, and that the potential for it to be used as a way out for the families, potentially as a receipt of some kind of financial assurance. And the member decides that now it's a way out while providing sustenance to my family. And to me, it just opens a door that's previously been closed to those members. And certainly, we respect the ones that have gone on before us as a result of suicide. But to me, I'm very concerned that this opens the door even wider to making it somewhat of a legitimate exercise and potentially to do it for the family to receive benefit. Again, I think we should be looking at more ways to help members of the forces and veterans with PTSD rather than giving them a doorway out. The second, I would say, which I would say is the more significant argument for myself, is compelling. And compelling is, it's got a few different forms. Certainly it's got the compelling, as we heard from physicians that are friends of mine and nurses, a doctor compelling a nurse to deliver the life-ending drug. Can a patient compel a doctor to end that patient's life? Does a senior feel compelled to end their life to lessen the financial burden to the family? Does a senior feel compelled to end their life to make room for others in hospital rooms and beds in our country? And to me, there's a lot of arguments. I'll talk about the physician compelling a nurse argument, first of all. Certainly, there's been discussion within the bill even to allow freedom of physicians to do what they wish to do based on their religious beliefs or just their beliefs, holding life sacred and not doing that. But I think most of us fully understand the way the Supreme Court can be used as a tool. A citizen could use the Supreme Court as a tool if a doctor refused service. If the doctor refused a person the service to end their life, it would likely end up in a court, and I'm sure we're going to see that if this law passes the way it is, where the doctor is held to account because a law is enacted that they will be have a duty to perform that for that Canadian citizen. And likewise, if the doctor feels compelled to perform that service, that doctor then, and even this is what we heard from doctors' testimony directly, the doctor then doesn't actually do the injection or doesn't do the duty of actually ending the life. It's passed on to another a member of the medical staff, usually a nurse, and that person will be compelled then, because under doctor's orders, they would be compelled to deliver the life-ending treatment or drug. Huge issues. And any one of those breaks in the chain could potentially be a court issue and end up in a court, and where that particular member of the medical staff and service will be ordered to enforce that care. I'll move into the more general compelling of seniors and people that are ill in our society. I have two senior parents. My dad's 82, my mom's 72. And the last thing I would want them to feel like is that they're a burden to our system. They've contributed all their lives. My dad still to this day works as a carpenter out in the shop, pays his taxes. That senior would feel like he needs or she needs to end their lives based on a healthcare system that needs more space or is just too expensive. Further than to be a senior, certainly I love my parents. Certainly that isn't the case across Canada. There's different families that don't agree as much as I do with my parents, and there's frictions within families. Do some of the frictions within families, would that be used and compel seniors to possibly end their lives based on that circumstance, just because they feel and they've been made to feel like they're a burden on our system? And certainly these are cases that they're the what ifs, but certainly with 30 million people, these will arise and have likely arisen already, and deeply concerning to me that even that's an option. Much has been said of late about Attawapiskat and suicide in general, about what the feelings are about suicide. And I don't think we can sugarcoat it. We call it end of life, and some other groups have been calling it different names, but it's suicide. It's ending of somebody's life. And I think what concerns me, and the example that potentially could happen, a group of individuals feel like they don't want to be on this earth anymore. They go into a physician's office based on a psychiatrist's exam and review that they are warranted to end their life. And I guess I'm just concerned that this opens the door wide to somewhat acceptance of suicide as an acceptable form of living in this world or ending your life in this world. And it's a huge concern for me. But I'll speak lastly about, I guess, why I don't think we need to be in this situation. And it goes back to the notwithstanding clause. I'll talk about a conversation I had with a judge on a plane ride home from Vancouver once. And my comments to that particular judge is, you know, we're checked as members of Parliament. Every 4 years during an election, we're checked. And often we see many different faces in this place. And the people of Canada have checked us, and some made it back, some didn't. We see some new faces. They made it in because the people have spoken. What check is on the judiciary of this country? And the response from this Supreme Court justice actually back to me was, well, there is a check. It's called the notwithstanding clause. And I would challenge this particular government, and I know it's a yeoman's work to even try and get this kind of law into some kind of acceptable form of so many diverse views. But we already have a law. We do. It's this job of this 338 members of this House of Commons to enact laws. It's the job of the Supreme Court to uphold those laws. And I guess my concern is that there seems to be a certain of our particular body by the Supreme Court. I just would challenge this particular government to look into that and look into, we already have a law. I think a lot of us still accept that law for what it is. And I think rather than having a discussion about reforming what's already there and rewriting what's already there, there's already a law that deals with this. I think we need to go back there and really think seriously about that. I certainly agree, I think, with most people here, palliative care needs to be better in Canada. We've all had passionate arguments of the sanctity of life, and I believe all were created equal in this place. I just think we need to seriously think about either rewriting the law as it was, as Canadians have sent us here to do, or to uphold the laws that are already in place by previous bodies of elected people to this House, and making sure that we honor this place and that this is a place where we make laws. And it's not just us as 338 individuals. We were sent here representing over 30 million people. And that voice needs to be heard loud and clear. And again, it's a tough argument to have in this place. Again, there's many issues on both sides. We all feel very passionate about it in whatever form that is. But I think we need to consider seriously to again, uphold the laws that currently are in place. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.